If you want you put back the link here. You're on the World Wide Web. Have them turn the camera.
Yeah, I'll turn it. I've got an issue with the thing right now. Let's see here.
I didn't present a formal presentation. I figure I always like to start with a little bit of trivia. You mentioned something I want to highlight. Drunk driving. We've all heard the slogan live and intoxicated driving. There's a statistic. Real quick guesses. What demographic, as far as roadway fatalities, has actually surpassed intoxicated drivers? Unfortunately, it's hard to prove distracted driving was a contributing factor in the crash. What's happening this week? There are more motorcycle fatalities in Missouri than impaired drivers. Believe it or not. So this weekend is Bike Fest, so encourage every opportunity, encourage folks to keep an eye out for those more vulnerable road users out there this weekend. So as we prepare for what is estimated to be 125,000 motorcycles. So this is yes, sir.
How much do they contribute that to the bill?
So if you heard KRMS, I think I mentioned it on Monday. Prior to 2020, when the helmet law repeal took effect, now in Missouri, it's no longer a requirement if you meet a certain age and have health insurance, you can ride a motorcycle without a helmet. Prior to 2020, we were seeing about, on average, only 12 people a year killed on a motorcycle who are not wearing a helmet. That number right now, since 2020, is now 80 people a year now killed on a motorcycle who are not wearing a helmet. 400%.
And they get out of hand, right? So that. But the other part that you should know with that is number of miles ridden. Right. You know, statistics are great, but you gotta have the facts behind it.
Yeah, and at the same time, there's usually a count of your helmeted fatalities that probably drop because folks are actually riding without a helmet now. But it's actually not sure. Our helmeted fatalities on motorcycles are staying steady.
And I believe the helmet is safe. I'm not advocating.
Right. Well, and I'm a personal choice too, but hopefully that choice leads to good decisions and better health for yourself.
And I think the deer ought to start paying more attention to the signs where they're supposed to cross.
So, believe it or not, that is a very controversial topic. Those deer crossing signs are on a list that Modot we no longer replace. So when those are beyond their service life and start to fade, we just remove those because.
Why are those not?
Well, some people like them. Some people think that the deer need to cross exactly right there. We don't want
Down here, you need to have a million of them.
So across rural Missouri, they're everywhere where it's susceptible to the just part of nature of what we have.
By having them that rolls people into a false sense of security elsewhere, is that the area?
A little, but it also, our system is flooded with signage. We talk about distracted driving. Folks don't read our signs as they are today. They drive into a work zone, they'll say, we didn't see your signs. On a divided 4-lane highway, we have at least 8 signs telling you won't take this lane in, or road work ahead, 1-lane road ahead, left lane closed, merge here. And that's on both sides of the roads. And routinely, the complaint is in a work zone, we didn't see your sign. You passed 8 of them and you passed 2 necessary things. So.
Kind of back to the deer thing, when I was stationed in Durango, we had sensors on the road, deer, and the light would come on, and and it was just kind of funny because being law enforcement, we knew that only the tourists would slow down for that. All the others, it's like BS, and they just continue on. So it's kind of funny, but after a while, people got used to it. And each other, but it's so faulty, and we wasn't weathered. acted, work on them, we were ready to go out, it was great. You guys are considering that? Some.
Not at this point. So last year I had a formal presentation and I broke down where Modot gets its revenue, primarily through road user fees, which is water fuel tax. It makes up about 2/3 of our revenue that's generated. The other third is licensing fees and vehicle sales tax. And then I broke down a little bit on how that is spent. We are required federally to spend a certain amount of money on safety improvement projects across the state. Because we don't have a state law in Missouri that restricts open containers. So in the state of Missouri, it's actually lawful to drive a vehicle with an open alcohol beverage in your vehicle. Now it's local ordinances, and most of the lake area has a local ordinance that prohibits it. But we don't have a state law that actually prohibits it. So federal highways, FHWA, then requires that, hey, Modot, if you want to receive federal funds and reimbursements through the federally based bill taxes, you're going to spend this amount of money on safety projects because you don't have laws that prohibit that. So that's off the top. That next level off the top after we allocate our funds for the projects is major bridges. So the responsibility of individual districts, and I don't know if you all know, Modot divided into 7 districts across the state. We've got Northeast, Northwest, 3 across the middle here in Central Missouri, where the Central District. So I actually work out of those Beach, but I report to district office in Jeff City. And then we've got the 2 districts in the south part of the state, southeast, southwest. So it'd be unfair as funds are distributed across those districts to program these construction projects all over to expect the districts to have to pay for works for bridge, a $250 million bridge. If the district had to actually completely replace that bridge out of our district funds, it would eat up our entire construction budget. So we can take that off the top. So those major bridges being bridges over 1,000 feet in length. Like the Ozarks, we got a handful of them. So pretty fortunate that our funding structure here at the lake doesn't make the district pay for these major bridge rehabs that fortunately are probably a few decades away. So after that, then we get into what we call the asset management. So we maintain about 34,000 lane miles of roadway across the state. So what we don't want to do is expand the system when we know that there are roads within it existing that are not in the condition we want them to be. So we have targets, we've got a metric that we want to meet, where our interstates are about 94% good condition. So if you travel I-44, I-70, 90 in the mid-90s, we want that interstate to be in good condition. As we get to our majors, Highway 54, Highway 5, we want about 90% of that major road to be in good condition. So that 90% of those segments are in good condition. Those higher traveled minor roads are about 80, and our low volume minors in the 70s. So trying to maintain that target, and I'll explain a little bit further why there's the concentrated area of some improvements coming up next year. But we try to hit those targets across the entire state. So as we start to see pockets and then really be analyzed by counties across the state, we try to identify what counties are not meeting that target, and then we invest that asset management plan dollars to make sure we meet those targets. In years past, in the last few years with project inflation, this last bullet, we've actually not had any funds remaining. We've struggled just to meet the asset management, meet that commitment and expectation for the public that those roads are going to be in that certain percentage of good condition. So we're getting better. Project inflation is at least in Central District. We are very fortunate. We're actually seeing it start to level off. So we saw about a 30% increase in project costs years ago, which meant we don't have anything left for this last bullet, and that is system expansion. This is our tried and true, our vetted process for planning for improvements like what's gonna happen out on 54 next year, next fall. These system expansion jobs, not just the overlays, not just taking care of our bridges, but say we want a new interchange here, we want additional land, we want a new corridor, new routes. That last bullet is the last thing that we fund. And fortunately, we're starting to see some projects get moved in there. So a couple years ago, we had working to add anything in. The other thing I do want to mention, when we program all these construction projects, when we budget and plan for them, we have what a 5-year rolling plan. So it's our commitment. Here's a list of projects that we are committed to letting for bid or completing in the next 5 years. And the first 3 years of that plan, it's updated every year. The first 3 years are 100% funded. So we have revenue projections. And then we say, okay, we're going to program enough projects to spend 100% of the funds that we expect to receive in the next 3 years. In those latter two, the last 2 years of that rolling 5-year plan, we programmed 50%. So we've got a little bit of flexibility. Say a bridge condition takes a huge hit, and all of a sudden we say, oh, this bridge, we thought we had 10 years before we usually replace it. We got 4. We've got some room to move that into our construction program and get that budget in those latter years. So I want to touch on the planning process and those system expansion and where those projects start. So here locally at Lake of the Ozarks, we've got a regional planning commission called the Lake of the Ozarks Council of Local Governments. It's comprised mostly of county commissioners, city administrators, mayors, across all of our municipalities and counties, chamber executive directors, and that group, that body gets together, and we have a subcommittee that's got some business owners that are appointed by those locally elected officials that serve on the actual board. So that subcommittee is called the Transportation Advisory Committee. And it also is so comprised of the field elected officials, but that group gets together. So they go over their specific needs or what area they serve. I can go ahead and tell you, my dad's on the Transportation Advisory Committee, called the TAG. So with his involvement with the community bridge, at the time it was Chris Franken asked him to serve on the Transportation Advisory Committee. So he kind of represents Camden County in that capacity on the TAG. So that group gets together and they prioritize locally what are our local needs here at the lake. Beyond just the asset management plan, but beyond our responsibilities as Modot, but what improvements do they want to see or do we need here at the lake? They've identified the Lebanon, Route 5, Jefferson Avenue, travel through Lebanon downtown and congestion. So there's an alternative route proposal. That's the number one local need identified by that body and then approved by the board of the Council of Local Governments. Number 2, Route 135 improvements. So this is the Kansas City to Lake of the Ozarks connector. Spot improvements are on 135 to try to better mobilize folks to get to Lake of the Ozarks. Number of the needs are right here in Camden, Highway 5 and 54. I'll get into that a little bit here briefly. We're going to change it at Camden. Route 5 improvements, capacity improvements, a turn lane extension through Sunrise Beach and through Warwick. There's actually 3 segments of Highway 5 that they've identified as an unfunded need for capacity and safety improvements. And then it goes on from there. So that body is actually who Modot. We ask those local elected officials to get together, prioritize your own projects locally, and then submit that to Modot. And then get together with all the RPC staff across the district. So Minimo RPC, which represents the rural area of Cole County, Callaway, King City, outside of the urban area around Columbia. We've got CATSO, the Columbia Area Transportation Group, the urban area of Columbia. CAMPO, which is Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, and we got the Merrimack River, the folks out in Iowa. All those agencies of those RPCs and NGOs, what we call planning partners, get together, and then we rank and file those locally identify projects across the district. And then Modot, as we've got funds available for that last line, so system expansion, we go to that list to then pick projects to get put on this list. And there's a couple that I want to mention. Years ago, that body identified Route 52 in their sales as a need. Friday afternoons, there's major congestion. School weather, congestion, the high school meetings. Routine maintenance issues with that span wire signal. Safety issues with that signal, rear end crashes and right angle crashes. So that group identified that need, the safety improvement, a few years ago, and now we're here. We're about 5 weeks away from starting construction to construct the roundabout. Their sales at 552. So bear with us through this winter and through next spring and season. There are contractual requirements that they're going to have to maintain 2 lanes of travel throughout the daytime, especially into the weekends. But there will be some intermediate closures, lane closures, some limited movements through there. So wanted to touch on that one. That one's getting ready to fire off. Another project that's going to be happening this winter is our ADA transition plan. So MoDOT is not just roads and bridges. We're responsible for all modes of transportation. So pedestrian facilities on the state system, rivers, ports, airports, railroads. We oversee those and regulate those entities. So ADA sidewalk work. We've got sidewalks. We're going to rehab their existing sidewalks that don't meet ADA compliance. So St. Elizabeth, Richmond, Dixon, Lebanon, and then at the high school in St. Beach on Highway 42. We're making some ADA improvements there this winter. But the big ones, I mentioned the roundabout, of course, but the other big ones, and I'm going to get through this real quick. Canyon 54 widening, probably one of most of us want to hear what's going on with the widening project on Highway 54, just right outside of Northeast here and all the way out towards city limits. We are in the right-of-way acquisition phase. So we've completed our engineered plans. We're preparing, we're trying to purchase all the easements necessary to construct 2 additional lanes on the sides of the existing 3-lane facility here. So that'll be a 5-lane facility from Bumper Hill Road all over the square. So pretty excited about that. We traveled through the square this morning. You saw the traffic coming eastbound. So excited to see that improvement. And that's going to fire off. We've got a June letting date next year. So that is going to be a later project next year. We're looking at likely like a September, October start date for that project, assuming we put some good bids there. We've got 1 bridge only. Believe it or not, this coming season, we've only got 1 bridge in the area that's getting replaced. It's down in McLeod County. You know which route F is. Takes a sleeper. We got a little outer road there on the interstate. We're going to replace the bridge. And then thin lift overlays, getting into what the asset management, trying to maintain our roadways. We've got a number of roads in the area next year that are set to have maximum overlay on. If you live down south of Camden here and you enter to McLeod County, you're probably going to get impacted. Again, it goes back to when we look at these counties and that percent in good condition. We could see that McLeod County was behind, at least the rest of the lake area. So McLeod County, E, J, J, A, C, H, C, P, and H, H. So get out the alphabet soup here. These are going to be our lesser travel routes, our minor ways, our lettered routes. But Camden A, N, W. So out here, and of course, Friday out. So the other project I do want to mention real quick, Camden D, takes you after Ha Ha Tonka and then all the way out towards the big county. We are going to also construct 2-foot shoulders as part of that overlay project. So next season, if we travel out to Ha Ha Tonka, some major work going on out there, constructing those shoulders to get you out to the park. We're familiar with where the post office is at, how scary or intimidating that is, getting on that. We're going to widen out to the side and hopefully make up a little bit more room for folks to get through there in the future. So
When will that begin?
next season. So We haven't actually awarded that contract, it goes out for bid, I think in October. So assuming first of all, we got to get good, low responsive bids that are within budget. Award the contract, and then what we do is to try to best, our bid prices and get those favorable bids. We allow a window, so we allow maybe a 6-month window for a contractor to come in. Because they're working, what they have going on outside of the department's work. So give them some flexibility to come in early in the season or late in the season. So we give them about a 6-month window usually, but we say, once you start, you've got 3 months to do it. So if you want to start in the spring, you're going to be done before summer ends. Or if you want to wait until summer, we're not going to allow them to work throughout the year, but coming this spring, I'll have more information, have a better idea of who was selected as the contractor, what their workload is, and when they plan to start that. But that's kind of a high level of how that works, to try to better our bids to get better prices, to not restrict, because if we restrict them, here at Lake of the Ozarks, there's a lot of folks that don't want to go in the month. It's tourist season, they don't want us to do traffic. That's great, but it's also Missouri, we've got about 7 months of a construction season in the winter time. If you want to take one of those months away from the contractors, it's going to drive the prices up because that's going to dictate their spending. They're going to be restricted. So, fortunately, not going to happen. Not here in Missouri, not when we've got 6, 7 months of construction. So last year, if you remember the part of that presentation, I said we're doing about, it was going to be a down year this year for as far as dollar. We spent about $25 million during 2024 on road and bridge projects here at the Danny Roeger. Next year's a different story. Those projects I mentioned, and there's one project I haven't even gotten to yet that makes up a good significant amount of the dollar amount. Next year we're looking at anywhere, depending on what happens with I-44 and the use of some general revenue funds that are less appropriated. We're looking at anywhere from about $55 million to $80 million worth of work here at Lake of the Ozarks and road and bridge projects. So substantially more road work going to be taking place calendar year 25 than what happened in 24. Significant improvements along 54. So for most of us, I mean, we all drive Highway 54 here in Lane. We're going to be impacted more so next year than we were this year. This year, we had a little tiny bridge project on the Grand Lakes Bridge. They were in and out of there in a couple of weeks. Essentially, no impact on 54 this year. Next year is a different case. So I mentioned the 54 widening job. The project I haven't mentioned is Miller County 54. This is from Eugene all the way to the Osage Bridge. So we commute towards Jeff City. That's the right. This next we're going to be resurfacing all 4 lanes of Highway 54, both lanes, both directions. It's going to be a single lane closure, so 1 lane of traffic is always obviously going to be main open. But we're going to be resurfacing all the way, like I said, from Eugene to the Osage River Bridge. I specifically want to mention the westbound lanes if you travel that way. The westbound lanes outside of Eugene, we're aware of the condition that they're in. So we're taking some additional efforts. That's not just a traditional overlay we see next year. That's a multi-lift treatment to try to improve the westbound lanes of 54. So excited to get that one done and get what is considered the poor condition of Highway 54, that segment, get back in good condition. So that's what we've got going on next year. I didn't present a list. If you all have any questions, if anything caught your eye or you just want to know more about it, yes, sir.
I've had a picture of it all the time. It seems like there are lots less always getting. Is that budgetary or?
So it's not necessarily. We our schedule as far as mowing and all the additional maintenance activities our crews are doing. We're still on schedule to make 3 mows a year. This year, here locally, the area superintendent had an increased budget that allowed him to actually lay $1 million worth of asphalt using our local crews only. So they got started this spring, which meant the regular scheduled mowing activity got pushed back. So here, in the lake area, we're getting ready to start our third mow. Historically, it always used to try to be the big three holidays, try to start our mowing activities around the first three, those three big holidays. Getting the first mow done before Labor Day, mowing around 4th of July, or Memorial Day, be mowing around 4th of July, and about Labor Day, get started on our third round. We're about a week away from getting started on our third round now. So you'll see some active mowers. This is an even year, so every other year, we try as long as time allows and effort allows, and equipment stays operable. We try to do what we call a mow out. So that's mow the limits of the right of way with what a brush hog can actually mow. So being an even year, this year not being a mow out, we're gonna make our single pass as part of our third mow. With the exception of here in town, within the city limits, we still mow out every Wednesday. But next year, ideally, we'll come in on our third mow and do a mow out and multiple passes. Especially on our land.
The cities of some areas, they have to maintain their all of that.
Here at Lake of the Ozarks, we don't have any agreements with our municipalities that require them to maintain our right of way or mow essentially. The city of Osage Beach, the city of Camdenton, their local crews step up and do a lot of work for us. They know what we have to maintain here locally. It's almost impossible to maintain all the letter routes, the number of miles that our crews maintain. We need to run guardrail regularly. It's gonna get the 1 or 2 times a year if it was just us. Yes, sir.
Down 11 and Highway 64, west side of town, that bridge has been built for a long, long time. How soon is that gonna open again,
Route 64 out towards Bennett Spring.
Yeah,
The Goodwin Hollow Bridge, so we closed that right around, was it 4th of July, week after 4th of July. That is a full bridge replacement. So they tore the old bridge down. Put some new footings down in the creek bottom. We are actually realigning, if you're familiar with Route 64 goes out to Bennett Spring. As you're heading out to the park, going east or westbound, there's a left-hand banking curve. We're actually gonna move the roadway about 10 foot north and improve that curve through there. And the bridge itself is gonna be about 4 feet wider than the old bridge. So significant safety improvements getting through there. They've got of course, all the foundation set, what we call a substructure, columns and footings. The superstructure is all in place, the girders, the beams, and the deck panels, they elected to go with precast concrete deck panels. Those are all in place and they're setting their false work right now for the overhangs, for the cantilevers, the outside edges of the bridge. And they'll come in and they'll pour the actual bridge deck. Probably here in about 2 or 3 weeks. That leaves some roadway items, they gotta bring up the fill, they gotta do it's about 1,000 foot of new pavement. That they gotta do out towards the east side of the bridge. So we're still looking at probably a Thanksgiving completion date, that's the contract completion date. They are making great progress, we're happy with the progress they're making, so. I won't put on record and say that they might be done early, but there's the opportunity that they can be done early.
I was just down there yesterday and I thought that ought to be open by now.
No, it's a significant amount of work goes into that, beyond just a traditional bridge replacement, so.
So you talked about the increase in spending for next year, the maybe $80 billion. Does that include Logan street work? You said for the lake area, so I just.
Yep, so I should specify, I should have clarified. That discussion on what are the local area needs identified by that transportation advisory committee. That comprises the high priority unfunded needs list. So that's a list that is not programmed, not budgeted. And Modot, we don't have the funds to do everything on that list, but it's the list that we do have money. that's where we go to pick our project. That's how 52 and 5 roundabout, it's actually how the 54 widening project came to light. It was identified as a local need to expand the system there, so 135 and Route 5 Jefferson Avenue, all those projects that I mentioned as the local needs, they are still unfunded. Now we do, as part of that process, kind of working backwards with some target figures. Say, okay, if we had this many additional dollars, and with the resources Modot currently have with our staff and our workload, our availability, we've got what we call the tier 1 unfunded needs, which means we can actually get these done. If we have this money, we can get this done in the next 5 years. That project would be broken. Route 5, the alternative route, truck route around Lebanon, is in tier 2. So that is, it would take 5 to 10 years to actually deliver that project. And then tier 3 being, it's gonna take more than 10 years before Modot we can advance that project. The one project actually identified by the Council of Local Governments that has moved forward recently, it was number 3 unfunded need here locally, was the congestion mitigation at 5 and 54.
Yeah, let's get that.
So what needs to start is, what is it a third one? Is it, network connections from Cecil Street to Jack Crowell and up to Bear Block? What is the case? So rather than just, this group of individuals, business owners, stakeholders, tell Modot, hey, we want this. This is the need. They said, hey, let's get an engineer that specializes in this. Let's get the traffic study done, what we call traffic study. Get that recommended improvements to mitigate congestion, and then pursue that project. So the traffic study, we are under contract with CBD, a consulting firm. This is what they do. They analyze what are the existing conditions, what are the future projected traffic counts. Where's Camden going in 20 years from now? We don't want to invest in to mitigate traffic, but all of a sudden 10, 15 years from now, it's back up again. So what are their recommended improvements to mitigate traffic? And then that is due in March. So I'm hoping next spring to be able to present, hey, this is investment made to perform this study to tell us, here are the recommended improvements. So, and then that project obviously will just get slid right in there with the rest of the unfunded needs in the area.
Do you think there'll be a need too with the toll bridge being open where it dumps out of the vibe? That's bad.
You don't have to imagine. We're actively taking counts periodically. We're seeing about a 50% increase in counts going across the community bridge. Now that the toll's been lifted, we've shattered records on Friday afternoons, or Friday in that 24-hour period on Friday. We're beating the old all-time record since the bridge was built by about 1,000 cars a day regular. We're beating 11,000 cars a day on any given Friday. Travel through there in the car. So historically, through the voting process and the ranking process here locally, MMTTNF corridor since the community bridge was built has been at least within the top 5. So Modot, we asked for the top 5. So we love to take all 40+ projects that are identified locally, but we asked for the top 5. That's historically always been in the top 5. A couple of years ago, I don't know if the folks serve on the transportation advisory committee or other, the other local priorities just got deflated. But it fell out of the top 5. This last round of voting back last winter, getting ready to come up again this January, where that group's going to get together and vote again. They update their priorities every year. This last year it got put back in the top 5 for TPF. Yes, sir.
Two questions, where is the truck bypass?
So the city actually conducted their own study, they hired their own consultant to go ahead and skip that step. That we're doing here in Camden, so their consultant study, which is approved by Modot, has three different alternatives. Or I should say, three different alternatives to tie into the existing facilities. It will stay, according to that study, to the east of Lebanon. So if you are traveling southbound on 5, as you enter the city of Lebanon, they have three alternative locations where you can, will be unimpeded to essentially go left. Widening is one of them. So you'll travel east, outside city limits, right there at city limits, and then tie back in at Elm. So if you know where the bowling alley's at, we're around 66, somewhere between there and it's not obviously all the way to Washington. There's another city street right there, a segment where they recommended the connections down to Elm. So it'll actually be with a 129 exit. Fit in the Route 5 corridor, tying down. Or
Second question, are you gonna do anything with the existing road at 54?
the existing will stay. So all the existing will stay. We're essentially gonna just project cross slope out. And add 2 additional lanes on the outside. So it's simple, similar to a 2-foot shoulder widening job. This is a 14-foot widening job.
Any other questions?
Just east of there, the road goes down to the school. And the lights never work right. Go through the lights going east, and you have to stop and wait. But then, are they gonna they ought to just put a roundabout in there?
Yeah, I'm for them. Believe it or not, at that location, when you've got multiple legs that are almost equivalent in counts, it roundabouts function and they function quite well. You know, if there was an overwhelming disparity, like I use KK, you know, there's a roundabout there, the Dinky Drive goes off. Probably built that roundabout maybe a little premature before development took place on KK there. But in that condition, I'm all for roundabouts. What a roundabout would actually allow us to do in the future is also put up a median strip to restrict the left turns. And then if you wanted to make a left turn, you go to the roundabout, you U-turn and you come back and make a right into that business. So it would open up the opportunity to do that without really hindering all those businesses, all those property owners in their access.
Thanks, Danny.
Good having you meet.